All right, I guess we're going to start. It's 5:30. This is a special meeting of the City of Urbana and Cunningham Township to consider consolidated social service funding applications that are new, changed, or significantly different than those that have been presented before. I guess the thing to do is to call the meeting to order, and I have to call the roll. Is that correct? So, Madam Chair, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Bowersox. Mr. Jacobson.
Here.
Mr. Lewis. Ms. Marlin.
Here.
Mr. Roberts.
Here.
Mr. Smythe.
Here.
Ms. Stevenson. Mayor Pressing.
Okay. So we're going to have, let's see, we have 10 different applicants who wish to speak. And I think we're going to allow them, 5 to 6 minutes? 5 minutes. So I'm just going to ask you to come up, and according to the order on the agenda, please introduce yourselves and the non-for-profit or agency that you're speaking for, and let us know your interests and concerns for community funding through consolidated social services. And I think that we've been real interested to know, and maybe Janelle wants to comment on this before we start, that usually we'd like to know as well how your program specifically affects the residents of Urbana. So, do you have any other comments, Janelle? No? All right, well, let's start. And I'd like to invite Community Choices, Community Living Program, Jennifer Knapp, Executive Director. Please step forward and say hello to us and tell me your interests.
All right. Well, good evening. My name is Jennifer Knapp, and I'm the executive director of an organization called Community Choices, and we are actually a cooperative organized by individuals with disabilities and their families. So started just a few years ago, and what we were applying for is the Community Living Program. And so this is actually supporting people with disabilities to be able to live as independently as possible. We are in the first year of the program right now, and are currently serving 13 people. And the idea is to develop an innovative model for serving individuals with disabilities. Mm-hmm. So most of the people that we support don't need 24-hour awake staff all the time, but they need some support to be able to live independently. So for example, one of the things that we are doing is called as having a community builder. So somebody who will live there rent-free in exchange for providing overnight support. So trying to find a cost-effective model, but that still gives people the help that they need. So there's really just three main parts to our program. The first is planning. So everything that we do is driven by the individuals and what they want. So it's where the individuals and their families and whatever support people they have in the community come together to help them come up with a plan. The second step is life skills training. So this is where we utilize a lot of university students. They are wonderful free labor for classes. So learning everything from social skills to taking care of yourself to taking care of your house. And then we follow up with one-on-one support, because there's some things that you can learn in a classroom setting, and there's other things that you need to learn just by practicing at your house or in the community. And then the third piece is housing support. And so this ranges in everything from matching roommates to finding those community builders that would live there, to problem solving, to providing oversight and support. So again, I think the strength of our organization is the cooperative. So we've got families who are involved. We have families that are interested in buying property for other people to live in. We have lots of strength within the cooperative of architects and nursing and all different kinds of support. So again, just really trying to have something that is innovative, that is a cost-effective way to support people that also helps them meet their needs.
Mm-hmm. And are these individuals people who've just recently become disabled? Are these people who are moving into the community? Are these first-time individuals or people you've helped in the past?
Good question. So we serve people with developmental disabilities, which means that you have acquired your disability before you're 22. So it's mostly people with autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, those kinds of disabilities. And the people that we're serving right now, we would want to obviously continue to support them, but then have the capacity to actually double the program over the next year. So we have 13 people that we're supporting now and can go up to 25. And right now we have about a third of the people in the program are from Urbana.
Okay. Other questions?
So you'd like to grow to about 25 individuals? You have, I saw 5 and 13 total at the moment?
Yeah, 13 total at the moment. Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
So like parents are part of the co-op? Parents?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and so they do a lot of helping each other, give rides and have family parties and that kind of stuff. So it's really trying to have a community and not just be an agency.
All right. Yes. Eric.
What are the other sources of funding that you either are seeking or that you believe you have in hand?
Yeah, great question. For the past several years, we have been funded by the Champaign County Developmental Disabilities Board and Mental Health Boards, so we anticipate continued funding from them. We've also now applied to the United Way, and then also are doing fundraisers and seeking individual donors.
Okay. And we're about 5 minutes up now, so we should go on to another person. All right. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Our next spokesperson would be from Community Foundation of East Central Illinois. See you and home. And please come forward and introduce yourselves. Welcome.
Hello, thank you. I am Melanie Jackson, and I am the executive director of a new organization called See You at Home. We are focused on helping the most vulnerable homeless in our community countywide. First, we'd like to give our thanks to the city for taking care of one of these folks, Bill Walton, and for seeing that he had shelter and getting him connected with the services he needed through the VA, and seeing that he has the help that he needs now. We owe that to the city, so thank you for that. These are the kinds of folks we're seeking to serve. Last October, we surveyed the homeless population and talked with about 520 people. The purpose of the survey was to identify those who are most vulnerable, those who are more likely to die unless their situation changes. And we identified just over 100 people in the county that fit into that category of broad homelessness. Those who are staying with a family member or a friend, don't know where they're going to be next week. Those who are in the shelter system, staying in cars, street homeless, that's the broad number of homeless. Our focus is on the most vulnerable, and there are 16 people who fit into that category of most vulnerable and street homeless that we are seeking to house and to support. We did get our first person under a roof in December, and he has made significant, solid progress. He's now in a rehabilitation facility, and we're definitely hoping for the very best for him. And we also hope to house our second person this week. All of our support at this point is through volunteers. Some of them are professional volunteers, and some of them are serving as volunteer lay people, advocates, and mentors for the people that we house. But each person is housed in their own structure. It's not one large building with multi-units. It's scattered site. And these first two that we're supporting are in individual houses. See You at Home is also working with Chief Conley and the Crisis Intervention Team officers from various agencies to better educate them on this particular population. We're very excited about that connection of working with the folks that are in Urbana's community. And we hope to do much more with the city of Urbana to identify the homeless and to work toward getting them off the streets and onto stability, self-sustaining.
Yes, my name is Rick Cruz, and I currently serve as the volunteer coordinator for See You at Home. In CU at Home, we refer to the homeless as residents because they are people who reside in your community, though without housing. And our mission is to provide them a context, a supportive context, in which, as they are housed, they move towards appropriate self-sufficiency, independence, and then become contributors to the community and builders of the community rather than potentially detractions in the community. I believe that we are set on a good course, but what CU at Home needs to become more effective and more able to accomplish its mission is an executive director who is able to give more of her time and really all of her time to the work that she has set before us. And the funding that we're requesting would enable us to provide a modest stipend to our director so that she can focus her time on moving us forward and leading us and advocating for the cause. Thank you.
Okay, so we're kind of running behind already, so I say thank you very much. Unless there's a question, yes, or pressing.
Of the 16 people, can you say where they live? Is this in the entire county of Champaign?
It is countywide.
Okay.
Yes, Rantoul, Champaign, and Urbana is where we surveyed.
Okay. So of the 16, how many were in Urbana?
They didn't specifically give us former residences.
But if they're living on the street, which
Yes.
city are they living in?
Both.
They just go back and forth?
Yes, many, especially between the two libraries,
Oh, yeah.
that area.
Okay, thank you.
And Diane? Yes.
Is your goal to put each person in a separate home?
That is the goal.
It seems like an expensive way to go. What's the rationale behind that?
The main rationale is many of these folks are mentally ill and addicted. They're dual diagnosis, and there is a much higher success rate to serve them one person at a time with their own support network rather than 4 or 5 of them in one location. Many challenges come up when they're under one roof together. This is a housing first model, and it's individual dwellings. That's the model that we're using of philosophy.
Do you consider individual apartments?
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's not a standalone house. They could be an apartment.
It could be an
Okay,
apartment,
right.
absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, and we're running out of time.
I know, so my question doesn't have a short answer, but if you can email us maybe with something about this. As I look at your model, it looks to me as though you're dedicating yourself to those cases that, on the one hand, are the most needy and the most desperately in need, but on the other hand, one might think have the least favorable prognosis for, in the long term, getting out of homelessness. So if there's anything that you can send us that would point us to evidence as to whether your approach applied to this population has some significant chance of long-term success in getting these folks out of homelessness, that would certainly mean a lot to me, and my guess is probably to other folks who are on the council.
And with that, we need to
Glad
move
do
on.
that. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think we're here to talk about the philosophy of their proposals, but just to find out what they're asking for.
But I think we're here to get as much information as we need to make a proper judgment.
Okay, all right. All right, the next agency would be the Developmental Service Center. YMCA passes for CILA residents.
Good evening. I'm Janice McAteer with Developmental Services Center, and I don't feel like I need to spend any time talking about who we are because I think you guys know, so we'll try to just cut straight to the chase here of what we're asking for and why. CILA, we refer to as SILA, which is a community integrated living arrangement, which we refer to as group homes. And we have 2 group homes in in Urbana, and those are the 2 homes that we're asking for. We have 7 homes throughout the community, and the people that are served in these homes are people that have more significant needs and need 24-hour support. And one thing we know, as technology and medicine and everything is getting better, people with disabilities are having the same fortune as we are to live longer. So what we're starting to see is some of the things that plague us as we age, we're starting to see in that population as well, which is a newer issue to have to deal with, a good one. But along with that is issues with obesity, cholesterol, the fact that everybody needs to move. The older you get, you've got to keep going. And so we were very thrilled with the opening of the Stevens Center YMCA. It is fully accessible. So what we are asking for are passes, 6 passes, to be able to take the Urbana residents over to the YMCA to get the exercise and so forth that we would like to see them be able to get. And I think although that's one component, the other component that I don't want you to forget about is the social component. You know, those kinds of things, us going to exercise, whether, you know, it's wherever you may go to exercise, even if it's out of doors, we try to do all of that, but this is one way in which socially these folks can go and have very similar experiences that you and I will have the choice to do. So that's the other component to it that is very nice. And by having the 6 passes, it allows us to take 1 or 2 people at a time at different times, where we don't go everybody at once, kind of, you know, just kind of descending upon there, but it's more individual choice. So, any questions?
Yeah, Mayor Pressing?
How much are the passes?
Oh, you know what? I have to look. It was pretty expensive. If somebody has a calculator, if you just literally do 3,900 divided by 6, that's what it is. The support is 3,900. Yeah, is the total, and that's 6 passes. And I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me. I just have the total.
About 620.
There you go.
Something like that.
Yeah, right about.
Eric?
Are the passes transferable between people? Is this for 6 passes for just 6 people, or can you serve more people over the course of the year?
Good question. We have talked to the Y about that, and that's something that they're working on. In the past, years ago, when we did this, they allowed us to be transferable between the houses, and that's what we're fully expecting, because they're doing as much as they can to allow, you know, the best use of the facility too. So that's something that we're talking about.
Diane Marlin?
Are any of the facilities at the Urbana Park District, like the Aquatic Center or Phillips Recreation Center, accessible enough or useful to your clients?
Yes, I think that they are, and we do a lot with CU Special Rec too, which also brings us, you know, at different times into Urbana. But for some of these folks with like mobility issues with wheelchairs and things like that, that's where the more accessible area, especially in the gym area, will be more accessible for them.
So they can't use Urbana?
No, I'm sure they can some, and I'm sure they do some. I don't work in that department, so I can't answer that 100%, but they, you know, are out and about all the time. This is just an area that we know from aquatics to the gym classes, as well as being able to lift, you know, work on machines and things like that. It's all 100% accessible.
Okay, thank you very much. The next agency would be the Prairie Land Conflict Mediation Center. Know your options.
Good evening.
Yes.
My name is Virginia Boland, and this is Joy George. I'm the volunteer fundraiser and program development person, and Ms. George is the executive director for Prairie Land. The program we're talking about is Know Your Options, and it is a way of going to preformed groups in the Urbana area where they have people meeting together who are at risk for homelessness, and working with them to empower them, provide support services, and increase their self-sufficiency by teaching coping skills and teaching them about mediation services that are available to them, and the services available to them through the tenants union, Champaign-Urbana Tenants Union. Because we know that it's difficult to get together new groups of people, we're going to preformed groups who meet on a regular basis. And part of what we will do to try and encourage people to attend is to provide them with either snacks or lunch. Or if it's a late meeting, perhaps dinner. But that we will feed them and encourage them to attend. We expect that this will cost about $5.15 per person. We expect to be able to meet with 360 people. We'll have a meeting every month with a different group for every month of the year.
All right. Are there questions now? Thank you very kindly.
Yeah.
Oh, there is one.
Yeah, can you point us to, and maybe again, this would be a follow-up message, to efficacy of this approach?
This is a new program,
right?
And it would be a new approach. We wanted to increase efficacy, which is why we decided to go to pre-formed groups.
Mm-hmm. But well, for example, there's an approach. I mean, there are various approaches to conflict resolution, to helping people manage conflict resolution in groups.
Yes, sir.
And that's not a literature that, I happen to be familiar with, and maybe the rest of us are not expert in it too. So if you can just send us pointers to some of that background,
okay,
that might be relevant. At least to me, I know that would be very helpful.
Okay. Background on conflict mediation.
Yes, and conflict mediation, and if possible, conflict mediation with this type of target population, or as close as possible as you could, as exists.
Okay.
And Mayor.
What is the total that you're asking for?
$1,860.
And could you do this in conjunction with any other program?
We will be working in conjunction with the tenants union.
I mean, there's a program for feeding people in Champaign, and I wondered if feeding them is your reason to get them there, would you be able?
The reason to get them there is to work with them.
Well, your
on
method,
services.
your method
Yes.
of getting them there. Would that possibly be a way you could do it?
It isn't. What we're doing was predominantly in the Urbana area. It certainly would be something that we could look into.
Like Daily Bread does the lunch, and then the other question, following up on what Eric said, would you have a way of measuring whether you're doing any good? Like, do you have
Yes.
a program to look at it and periodically evaluate it and see what you need to do?
Yes, our intent is to contact the people on a quarterly basis who have attended the meetings and see if they've had an opportunity to use that, and use that as a self-report way of looking at efficacy. And in addition to that, looking at any referrals that come to the mediation center or the tenants union that reference these meetings, or people who had attended these meetings, and use that as an objective way of counting efficacy.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you indeed. Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your question?
It's a sure. Well, it answers it as much as we can do in the time allotted. But if you could send me pointers to do a little more research, that would be terrific.
I'd be happy to do it.
Thank you very much. And now, representatives from the Salvation Army on social services and emergency family shelter topics. Please introduce yourself. I don't have your name here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, you haven't gotten sit down yet, but now go ahead.
My name is Michael Fuquay.
Okay.
I am with the Salvation Army. And we want to thank you for just letting us present this to you, for sure. We don't envy your job. There's a lot of good things that are presented to you here. But we think that we're kind of where the rubber hits the road, practical application of funding in these two areas Social services, let me talk about that first. I think we're asking, yes, I know we're asking for $3,000 in this category. Last year, in 2011, we assisted 5,804 families from Urbana with these specific things in food, clothing, shelter, bus tokens, bus tickets, and prescriptions. There's other areas where we help them, but this is particularly where we're focusing on. We really would like to provide 30 bus passes to non-offenders in Urbana residences. That's 30 passes for 2 to 3 months at $60. That's $1,800. That's for job search or getting to work. I mean, it's a very practical application of these funds. Then we're also asking for $1,200 for prescription assistance. There's a specific need where someone will come to us and they say, you know, I just can't get this particular thing and I can't get it for the $10. And we've worked out an arrangement with some of the local pharmacies where we get some special rates and so on. It's a very practical application, I think, of these kind of funds. That's a total of $3,000 there. All of that goes directly to assist clients. All of that money will help people. The Salvation Army shelter, we have been approached. The Salvation Army has been in the sheltering business for an awfully long time, and we have been providing shelter for intact families. This is the intact families, what we're really wanting to approach today. For example, I had a gentleman literally today in the office who, I'd say he was a 30-ish sort of fellow, and he had a 3-year-old boy. He was getting ready to go to work. His wife was just getting off of work, so that they were trying to make this handoff. We're putting them up in a motel again. Through a series of events that honestly were no fault of his own, they're really homeless at the moment. We're putting them up temporarily. We're looking for a method of doing it on a more consistent basis, a more solid basis, and frankly a less expensive basis. Putting people in the hotel is rather pricey, as you know, even though the hotels do give us a pretty good rate. That particular case, we're just going to handle that. But that's the kind of thing that happens. It's an unusual circumstance, and really, if you listen to his story, you say, "You got to be kidding me!" There's a whole series of things that happen. But that's the way a lot of the families who become homeless, the intact family, husband, a wife, the kids, however you formulate a family, things just happen. And so we have to be able to provide some sort of housing for them on a temporary basis. There's other times where the city of Urbana and the city of Champaign, the fire departments in particular, asked us to step in and help in areas where large numbers of people were evicted, or not evicted, but they're through no fault of their own. The place where they were staying was inadequate. We had to find quick places for them. I need to keep this short. So we're requesting $5,000 from the city to assist families with security deposits and first month's rent once we get them stabilized and get them back into the system so that they're just able to manage that. We also would like to provide, through this whole system, that's what we want to do with the money that we're requesting from you, an overall work that we're working toward is a new shelter that would provide temporary shelter for up to 3 months, case management to help them get back into the system there again. So we're looking at an overall project, but this particular aspect of it, this for $5,000, would help us to meet those immediate needs that we're looking at on a consistent basis.
Thank you very much. And are there questions? Yes, Mayor.
Did you say there were 5,800 families from Urbana?
No, I'm sorry. Those would be individuals.
Okay,
that'd be a big chunk of people, wouldn't it?
And on the security deposit, have you done that before? Would you get the security deposit back so that you could use it for another family?
Yes, yeah. Well, that would be the plan. There are times when it just doesn't come back, with the families that we're working with, and sometimes. But yes, we would do that and then recycle it through as security deposits again.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, continuing, the UP Center of Champaign County Social and Support Groups. Welcome. Let us know who you are and what you'd like.
Yes. Thank you. Good afternoon or good evening. My name is Megan Paisley. I am the Vice President of the UP Center. The UP Center is a community center for the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, questioning, and ally community. I will be shortening that to LGBTQ. So if that's what I say, you'll know what I mean. The UP Center is currently in its third year of existence. We are housed in Urbana. We're actually in the Independent Media Center just across the street. We provide support, social, community building, and educational programs for the LGBT community and our ally community across Champaign County. We are housed in Urbana, so we do serve a number of Urbana residents. We do not require the people that come to our programs to tell us what city that they reside in, so we don't have specific numbers on that. But I would estimate that a third to a half of our current program users are from Urbana. Excuse me. So we have applied for funding to help us with our social and support programs. We currently have 9 social and support programs through the UP Center. We are completely volunteer run, so all of these programs are being run by board members and community volunteers. We have, for example, a men's group that meets weekly for gay and bisexual and trans men to come to talk 2 weeks out of the month. It's a support group, 2 weeks it's a social group, and it's facilitated by one of our board members and a couple of community members that have experience in counseling and social work. We also have a women's group that meets officially monthly, but they tend to get together a few times outside of that group meeting as well. We have a youth group, 2 youth groups that meet at the UP Center. And when I say youth, I'm talking about middle and high school. And they have a support group that meets twice a month and a social group that also meets twice a month. We have some other special interest groups, for example, a book club, an adult social group that's not separated by gender, and we have a brand new transgender support group and a bisexual group as well. And so the purpose of these groups really are to provide support for members of the LGBT community. Even our social groups really have a major supportive aspect. I'll give you a very quick example, and then I'd love to answer any questions that you have. We had a social event for our youth on Friday night, and these are youth that also come to our support group meetings, and they came up to at least 3 of them came up to one of our group facilitators on Friday night to talk about things that were bothering them, things that were going on in school, issues with coming out to their parents, things like that they had never brought up in support group. But they were in this social setting, it was less pressure, and they were able to talk about things that were bothering them. So we consider our support, or our social programs to be just as important as our support. So any questions that I can answer?
Go ahead, Eric.
Where are your social support activities carried out now?
Most of them are carried out in the UP Center, which is, we have an office space in the Independent Media Center. Some of them get carried out in different areas across the community, in both communities. So we have a families group that a couple of months ago had an event at the Urbana Library. Just this weekend they had an event in Savoy at the bowling alley, things like that. But most of the group meetings take place at the UP Center.
Yes, Diane.
What percentage of the participants would you say live in Urbana?
I would guess about a third to a half. Because we are housed in Urbana, we do get a lot of the Urbana residents.
Third to a half.
And may I ask, is your the support that you're asking for, is it for assisting the volunteers, or is it for supplies or something like that?
It would be supplies and also outreach. So we're hoping to increase the number of people that are coming to the groups. We do have a pretty good, consistent group of people that are coming, but we know that there's areas that we're missing. So for example, we've just started this transgender support group. Part of the funds would go to outreach to that community. Also, within our youth group, it's pretty diverse racially and ethnically, but some of our adult groups tend to not have a lot of racial diversity, so hoping to do some more outreach in those areas as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Now I invite Urbana Adult Education, USD 116.
Hello, thank you for your time this evening. My name is David Adcock. I'm Director at Urbana Adult Education. You may know it, we are an adult education center. Last year we served 1,167 students in our adult education programs. And those aren't counting the community education programs that some of you might be familiar with, but they're the ones, I would say the majority of our classes are to serve students who are low income and undereducated. They're coming to us for the most part to complete their high school education because they did not complete it when they were in high school. Or some are coming also for English as a second language services. What we're proposing is not more education services, even though I will say we're completely dependent on grants, mostly state and federal grants, to provide our educational services, and those in the last few years have been reduced, and we have had to make cutbacks in terms of people and classes that we offer. But what we're asking the City of Urbana for is help to purchase a video security system. It's something I know we've needed for many years. We've had different types of situations, including growing amount of graffiti and vandalism, which is costly to remove. We've had thefts, including copper from our air conditioner. We had a computer lab burglary a few years ago. We don't have very many fights, but when we do, it's really disruptive to our learning environment. And drugs, we know that some of our young people do use drugs. We are very much surveillant. I mean, we really watch that. And we do work closely with the Urbana Police when necessary, but it's really hard to monitor that with people. So what we're looking toward is to purchase a video security system that would help monitor both the inside and the outside of our building, not to provide more educational services, but to provide a safer environment for those that we're providing right now. So we're looking at it as an infrastructure improvement. We are a part of the TIF 1 and TIF 2, I believe, areas in downtown Urbana. And we have been working closely with the city on the Boneyard Master Plan. We think it's going to be very nice. We know that you'll probably need some security yourself. We'd be glad to, in any way we can, collaborate to, if there's any way to share building amenities, we would be glad to do that. So really what we're looking for is to make a safer environment. That's the key to the grant that we're asking for.
Diane Marlin.
How many of the cameras would be exterior and how many interior?
I think there would probably be at least 3, possibly 4 exterior, maybe 5. We really, it depends on how far around we're able to go in the building and what kind of coverage we're able to get with them. But we're looking at probably maybe 2 or 3 on the inside, 4 to 5 on the outside.
Eric.
Have your security issues necessitated calls for service to the Urbana Police Department?
Yes.
And about how many, or
well,
order of magnitude?
It depends. I mean, some of the things that I mentioned, the theft of copper from our air conditioner, that's only happened once last year. I would say we have officers in our building maybe once every couple of weeks. We sometimes make calls and get calls from our neighbors about some of the kind of just hanging around outside during our student breaks and that kind of thing, because we don't have a lot of space because of where we are for the students to be. So it's a matter of monitoring spaces around the building when students aren't in class as part of it.
And could you remind us where that space is? It's on North Race?
We're at 211 North Race, the corner of Griggs and Race Street, right next to the school district offices.
And Mayor?
No, I was going to ask, you say you don't get any money from District 116?
We get some funds from 116 for the students who are 17 to 19-year-olds from Urbana.
Okay. I mean, it's a school district building, so do they have capital funds?
It's actually, we shared the cost of that. It's an adult ed and school district building.
Okay. I mean, would they be willing to pay for part of this?
At this point, they haven't been.
Okay, how much money are you talking about?
We've been told by the company that we had talk with us about $25,000.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Quick.
There's one more.
Sorry,
Yes,
yeah,
Charlie.
David, is it by any chance the same company the Urbana Free Library uses?
It's Effie Moran. I don't know who the library uses.
Yeah, you might want to talk. I was just touching base with Deb Lissack at the library because they put in a system several years ago. You could check with them, find out how effective it's been, whether it works.
Okay.
And that sort of thing. My recollection is that it does work and does help. So
Sure.
but it'd be good to hear what she has to say because it's a lot of the same clientele.
Right. We know it works. The school district definitely buys systems for the schools themselves, but the central office is not one of the areas that has that at this point.
So the schools themselves have systems like this, but your facility does not.
Yes.
Okay.
We're kind of separate from the school district. They're our fiscal agent, but we're not. They don't provide funding for our teachers and that kind of thing. Okay.
Thank you very much. All right. Number 8 is Urbana-Champaign Independent Media Center, Media in Action. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Chris Rizzo, board member and facilities chair at the Independent Media Center. Thank you for the opportunity to tell you about this program. You're familiar with the Independent Media Center. If you're not, please ask in the question time. So we're asking in this grant for funding for a summer program for low-income youth that would help facilitate it's an educational program around media creation and critical literacy. This program would fund 10 individual students to be able to spend a good portion of the summer learning how to make media, how to think critically and view messages that they see in the media. And this is consistent with our mission at the Independent Media Center. It kind of melds youth and social justice by supporting them in sort of looking at the messages that they see and thinking about how they can make counter-argument messages. We intend to partner with the Center for Digital Inclusion at the University of Illinois Graduate School of Information Science to provide an initial train-the-trainer program, and we'll be using staff on site from, I believe, from our AmeriCorps Serve Illinois grant to help staff the program. I'll keep it short and sweet. I'm filling in for Carol Ammons tonight, our operations manager. She's on vacation, so be happy to take your questions.
Are there questions? Charlie?
Yeah, Chris, is this a revision of an existing program or is it the same program you've been doing already
It's
several
similar
ways?
to a past program. In the past, we had our Indie Media and Arts Lab, which I think you may be thinking of, and that targeted younger students primarily in the middle school, and I believe this targets teens.
Okay, so this is essentially a new program.
It isn't.
But built on some of the past experience, or?
Well, it builds on the same mission that we have always had, but it is a new program in the sense that, so the IMC became a Magnet partner in this past year, which is the Media Action and Grassroots Network, mag-net.org, I believe is the website. Essentially aligning ourselves with media and grassroots action organizations across the country. So this curriculum is a new curriculum that we'll be using through that partnership. And so it is something that we haven't done specifically in the past. It's more structured, actually, than the Indie Media and Arts Lab. And you'll see that in the grant narrative.
Okay, other questions? Okay, thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay, the Wesley United Methodist Church at the University of Illinois.
Good evening. My name is Donna Camp. I'm the Director of Community Services for the Wesley United Methodist Church and the Wesley Student Foundation. And a big part of my job is directing the Wesley Evening Food Pantry. The pantry is open once a month on the third Thursday of the month in the evening. On that one night a month, we serve between 800 and 1,600 people. Last Thursday, we served 1,279. Between a quarter and a third of the people that we serve are generally from Urbana. In 2011, it was a little over 3,700 people. We tend to see different people every night. While we do have a few people that repeat, we generally see over half the people on any given night are new. They've never been there before. So we see people once or twice while they have an emergency, and then we don't see them again. I guess in addition to being open in the evening, some other unusual things about us are that we offer 100% client choice. That means when people come to get food, they get empty paper bags and a grocery cart and a volunteer if they want one, and they get to choose their own food, whatever they want, as long as it fits in the bag. We have found that to be cost-effective as well as respectful. We can feed one person for a week for $5.15. We get 95% of our food from the Eastern Illinois Food Bank. We are a member agency of Eastern Illinois Food Bank. At the moment, we have one part-time staff person. That's me. And about 2,000 volunteers. So we are requesting from the City of Urbana and Cunningham Township some additional salary support. We'll be losing over half of the salary at the end of at the end of June, and a little over $15,000 for food. In 2011, we experienced a 30% increase in need over 2010, and in the first quarter of 2012, we are already 10% higher than we were in first quarter of 2011. So we are looking at a continued increase in the amount of money that we need for food.
Diane Marlin.
What are your other funding sources, and which one are you losing at the end of June?
For the last 3 years, my salary has been paid by a grant from the Illinois Disciples Foundation. They are no longer offering grants. Our other funding sources include about $35,000 from individual donations from church members, about $18,000 from individual donations from people outside the church. The church budget now includes part of my salary. Fundraisers and organizational donations and grants from outside the church are another $20,000 to $30,000. And I've got, even if our grant was funded completely here, I've got another $8,000 to $15,000 that I still need to figure out where it's coming from.
Okay, first the mayor.
What is your total budget, and what are you asking for from the city?
Our total budget is $162,000 approximately, and we're asking for $29,000.
Okay, thank you.
Is it a fair summary to say that you're sort of an extension of the Eastern Illinois Food Bank? I mean, you're more than that, but partly what you are is an extension of the Eastern Illinois Food Bank, but you're in a location that maybe is relatively easier for people to get to who are near the center of Champaign-Urbana?
In a way, Eastern Illinois Food Bank does not distribute food to people or individuals. They are the central warehouse and purchasing agent for many different organizations such as ours. So, yes, we are a member agency. I think we are convenient because we're in the middle of town and accessible by almost every bus route that goes through Champaign-Urbana. But I just wanted to make sure that you were clear that Eastern Illinois Food Bank doesn't give food to individuals. So, yes.
And also, maybe you can mention the fact that what else besides food goes into the bags? I think I found out yesterday.
Okay. Well, one of the things would be diapers, toilet paper, some things that you can't use food stamps or link cards to purchase. And we try to always have some sort of household supplies that people would need. We also, in the area where people are waiting, provide health services, information and referral services, education services. We always have a table that's helping people with their SNAP applications. We always have a parish nurse who's providing health screening and referral services. We've had the CU Public Health District provided free flu shots. I'm hoping I answered your question.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much. All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Next, the YMCA at the University of Illinois, La Liena. Oh, that's not probably, I didn't pronounce that right, I'm sure. La Linnea.
Good evening. My name is Mike Doyle. I'm Executive Director of the University YMCA, and joining me up here is Francisco Bears, who is our La Linnea coordinator, and he's an AmeriCorps volunteer with the University Y, so he heads up the program. I'll do a quick introduction, and then we can answer questions, and Francisco will be able to help out with that part. La Linnea is a new program initiative that has been launched in the last few months. And it's unique in a number of ways. One, it's all Spanish-speaking, so anyone who calls the number and is looking for assistance, the other end of the phone, it's specifically targeted toward people who are speaking Spanish and aren't as well versed in the English language. And this is part of the growth of this has been that it's one of the fastest growing segments of the population in Champaign County. I think there's been a 60% increase in Latina residents in the last 10 years. And this population faces some unique challenges and needs, not just a language barrier, but a large segment of the population is their status as being undocumented. It excludes them from receiving certain services. Certain agencies are actually unable to provide services to this population. So it's a group that doesn't get its needs met as well as some of the other segments of our population. What's different about La Linnea, there's a lot of wonderful agencies doing fantastic work in our community, but for a lot of them we found is that they're even challenged sometimes in trying to meet the needs of this population just in terms of language and being able to follow through on some of the stuff. We're different in that we're not really a translation service, although we'll provide that, but you have places like the East Central Illinois Refugee Center that does a lot of that. And we don't just give information and referral. The model that we've developed La Linnea around is really similar to another agency that you fund, the Champaign County Healthcare Consumers, and they have a healthcare consumer hotline. So although when people call and we work with them and assign them a volunteer advocate who's trained, that the work that they do really is in terms of working with that person is really advocacy. So a lot of times we find that our volunteers are advocating at the agencies, not because the agencies aren't doing a good job, but just because they need assistance in understanding the needs of the families. But we also do that in a wide range of areas. What we're not trying to do is just provide another layer of services that other agencies are providing, but really trying to fill in the gaps in between that. So we have a lot of partnerships with organizations in the community who turn to us for assistance. We've developed a very close working relationship with Lucia Maldonado, who is the Latino family liaison of the Urbana School District, and she's been instrumental in helping us get this service needed and is one of the people who has encouraged us to pursue that. A good example of the kind of things that we do a little differently is that we received several months ago, probably about 8 or 9 months ago, a number of complaints from families whose family member was stopped by the police, found themselves being arrested for a fairly minor thing and ending up in the county jail. And it uncovered a program in our community called Secure Community. So not only do we work in helping those families address the individual needs, but then identifying broader social policy needs, policy change that need to change. And I'm pleased to announce, and there'll be a meeting coming up in the next week, that the sheriff, as a result of this work, has decided to stop honoring those holds that they were doing on immigrant families when they got arrested here. So we're real excited about that, and I think it underscores the value of something like this is taking it beyond just helping individuals and really trying to change policies that impact a much broader part of the community. And the last thing I just want to say is that the funding that we're asking for is for a half-time AmeriCorps position. It costs our organization $9,000 to have an AmeriCorps slot with the organization. We put up some initial funding for that, and we're trying to build it so it's sort of self-sustaining. Half of the thing, we currently have a proposal pending before United Way to pick up the other half of that position, and we're asking the city if they might pick up half of it. And really the work that we want to be able to do is to build the volunteer recruitment and training so that we have enough people to meet the demand out there, but also to increase the awareness of the service in the community, but also working with agencies, a lot of agencies that aren't aware that they can turn to us and have that kind of assistance. So we'll open up to questions you might have.
Are there questions? Okay, very good.
Right.
Thorough and
thank you very much.
Informative. Thank you. This next part of the program presentations has to do with substantial increases in projects that are already existing. And our first participant will be Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Central Illinois. Please come forward. And this is concerning the community-based mentoring for the city of Urbana.
Yes, Eric Batesy with Big Brothers Big Sisters of Champaign County. So we are applying to expand both our community and school-based mentoring programs here in Urbana. We continue to be the only mentoring program here in the county that does offer both community and school-based mentoring programs, and I'd like to explain briefly what those are. In community-based mentoring, a mentor is matched with a child, a little brother, a little sister, and they will meet outside of school. That will typically be on a weekend. During the summer, it could be after school. Those meetings will be 2 to 4 times a month. Again, in all of our mentoring programs, we do ask for a 1-year commitment. In our school-based mentoring program, during school, the big brother, big sister will meet their little during school hours, typically a lunch hour, but then we offer a summer enrichment. That will be at the Urbana Library this summer. Over in Champaign, it'll be at the Champaign Library, and that is how we see a school-based mentoring program is 12 months. It's also a year-round mentoring program. The children typically that we mentor here in Urbana are from low-income families, struggle with self-esteem, academics, peer and family relationships, and are at risk of poor choices. We do like to say we are a preventative program. We work with children as young as age 5. Kids are referred to us by their families or a teacher, but if it's a teacher referral, in all cases, a parent must consent. More importantly, a child must also understand what this program is. This is not a program where a child is told to go or sent to go. A child has to understand what a big brother, big sister is. It's not a substitute parent. It's not a babysitter. It's not a source of financial assistance for the family. In the past 2 years, we have received funding for both our school-based and this past year, our community-based program here in Urbana. In total, we made 49 matches these 2 years. 40 of those matches are still active. So in over those 2 years, over 900 one-to-one contacts have been made between a big and a little. What we are applying for is to expand both those programs here in Urbana, to first of all maintain those 40 matches in existence and expand to another 45 matches in both community and school-based. With a total of 85 matches, that would translate into 1,500 one-to-one mentoring contacts over the course of 1 year.
Okay.
Question?
Yes, Eric.
So a tremendous amount of the effort that goes into your program is volunteer effort, the Big Brothers and Big Sisters.
Yes.
But and maybe it's clear in your application. I apologize, I haven't read it carefully. But what is the basis for calculating how many dollars it will cost to expand the program? For how much? What are the actual costs of doing that?
Well, the costs are in our case management. When somebody wants to become a big brother or big sister, that will be a 6-week process. What we will do is, first of all, a face-to-face interview that will be anywhere from 1 to possibly 3 hours. We do 3 sexual offender checks. We do a police check. We check 3 references. Then we provide training and orientation. That's all before a potential big will even meet a child. Once a volunteer is matched and becomes a big brother, little brother, big sister, little sister, our case managers every month over the course of that first year will be in contact with the child, the parent, and the volunteer in what we call match support questions. This is how we do our best in ensuring child safety is met. So we'll ask the big, we'll ask the little, how many times have you gotten together, what have you done? If it's a community-based, we're asking, if it's a child under the age of 9, are you sitting in the back seat, are you wearing your seatbelt? We ask the parent, that way in case there's any questions that have come up, our case manager knows in a very timely manner. In addition, we provide additional training throughout that first year. We have built into our case management, there are surveys that come up at 3, 6, and 12 months. The 12-month is an in-person interview back in our office, both the big and the little. That's really where the costs come in terms of case management.
Charlie? Oh. Well, I saw you. I'll look more carefully and decide next time.
Might be the same question that Diane's going to ask. How does this work with the current schools mentoring program?
Well, we cooperate with, if you're referring to CU 1-to-1, we do cooperate with them. First of all, both our organizations will ensure that no one child is served by both of us. The need for this program is extensive throughout the community. It was a couple of, maybe 3 years ago at this point, 3 elementary schools here in Urbana, the teachers were asked, how many children do you think need a mentor? And out of 970 something, the number was almost 800 that the teachers said. So we work in cooperation to ensure, first of all, that no kid has a mentor in both programs. Essentially, there are so many children that need a mentor. There's room for both of us. In addition, really, our program is different in that we do look at it as year-round mentoring, and we have a summer option for even our school-based bigs to continue meeting their little over the summer, as well as we are the only mentoring program that offers community-based mentoring that takes place outside of school. Typically, and I don't have research that shows this, but I just think common sense shows kids can get in a lot more trouble over summer because they have a lot more free time on their hands. That's really where a mentor can be very important to a child.
In terms of the the day-to-day, the individual interactions, community-based versus school-based, I assume the school-based are very similar to the CU 1-to-1. What does the community-based do that's different from the CU 1-to-1?
Well, community-based, if you're getting together with, say if it was me as a big brother and I go pick up my little brother on a Saturday afternoon, we might go to a game. We might go to we might go to a football game. We might go to a park, toss a football around. We might, go to Skateland. We might go feed reindeer at Hardy's Reindeer Ranch. I could have them back to my place and we would build a model airplane. The difference really is that in school, kids will talk about a lot, but outside of school, kids will talk about more. In a lot of, in a kid's world, a lot of stuff that goes on is with the family and with the neighborhood, and the community-based big is a little bit closer to that. If I could add to that, really what can happen also is, if you take you could take a little brother to Parkland, and if this is the little brother who's 15, 16 years old, you're showing him, the mechanics program at Parkland or the nursing program at Parkland. That may not be something the family has thought about or is aware of or has the means to get a child over there. So really getting the child out of their neighborhood, expanding their world within this community is something a community-based bid can do much more easily than a school-based.
Yes, Diane.
You're asking for $41,000.
Correct.
And $34,000 of that is for the excuse me, the case manager salary and benefits. Is that a position that's there now, or is this a new position that you're creating?
Well,
for this?
currently it's a position being shared by 3 people. We have a community-based case manager, we have a school-based case manager, and we have an enrollment person in our office. An expansion in Urbana, we want to designate a person who is going to focus on those Urbana matches. Typically, one case manager will have no more than about 75 matches to oversee, 75 to 100, depending if they're new or in matches that are in their 2nd or 3rd year.
So this is a case manager strictly for Urbana kids?
Correct. Correct. For those 40 existing matches from the previous funding, and then an additional 45 new matches in the city of Urbana.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate your input. Okay, we have one more. Center for Women in Transition. And 2 topics, a woman's place and homeless services. Welcome and introduce yourself.
Good evening. I'm John Sullivan, Executive Director of the Center for Women in Transition. Can I start with a woman's place, if
You
I
may start however you wish.
Just in terms of a review, in 2010-2011, the CSSF funded a woman's place at $14,400. I think last year it was $21,000, and the request this year is for $20,000. So I'm not sure where the substantial increase is in the reduction in the amount requested. So, I mean, obviously in terms of that's a 24-hour domestic violence shelter based in Urbana. On the homeless services side, in 2010-2011, the City of Urbana funded it at $24,075. Last year that was reduced to $13,000. We weren't really sure why there was such a significant reduction in that funding amount. I think the application of the Urbana percentage resident came into effect. I'm not sure in that year. And this year we are requesting $32,000. As you are aware, we are a comprehensive social service organisation who provide case management, training, substance abuse, mental health and counselling, domestic violence, homeless services for individuals in our community. Why are we asking for more money? It's pretty simple. Our health insurance bill is going up 12%, which is about $10,000. Our workers' comp is going to go up by about $8,000 because the state of Illinois is changing their unemployment rates. The property and liability insurance we predict is going to be going up 17%. Though this funding does, though this funding does not fund those things, that money's got to come from somewhere. So we can't rob Peter to pay Paul. And essentially what the City of Urbana has done for many years is keep a roof over their head and pay for the utilities. And that we haven't even predicted in terms of what utility costs are going to be increased by, nor in terms of what the stormwater utility fee is going to cost us, nor in terms of what the City of Champagne's recycling program is going to cost us. So it's not shiny, it's not bright, it's not new, it's a shelter. We have to keep a roof over our heads and we have to keep operating. And that's kind of the cost of running our shelter. It's not very exciting, but it's reality.
And are there questions? Yes, Mayor.
Are you considered a charity?
Yeah, we're a 501c3 non-for-profit corporation.
Okay. Well, one thing will probably lower your electric bill.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We actually have a contract with Constellation already, and we have about as low as we can get.
Okay. I think that if there was a reduction, you're probably correct that it was we have the same constraints that you do, and we're trying to limit it to serving people from Urbana.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So, what percentage of the people that you're serving on these requests would be from Urbana?
Obviously, for a woman's place, it's 100%. They live in Urbana.
Oh, okay, because they're living in Urbana. I guess it would be hard to measure, wouldn't it? Because they could come to Urbana from someplace else.
Yes.
Okay.
But the fact that they're homeless means they don't have anywhere else.
Yeah, okay.
Since the organisations have combined, a lot of individuals now coming out of the Emergency Transitional Domestic Violence Programme are transferring over to Champaign in terms of the homeless programme because they can't go back to their abuser. So
Okay.
we've seen our number increase in terms of the number of Urbana residents, technically, because they're coming from a woman's place over to Champaign increase. It's about 43%, something like that, maybe a little lower. I think the number's 43 out of 106 or something for the last year were Urbana residents.
Thank you.
It fluctuates, though, to be honest.
All right, other questions? Diana?
I notice you are not requesting funding from United Way. Is that just this year, or why?
We do get funding from the United Way.
It's not in your budget.
For which program are you talking about, Diane?
I'm in the second application. I think it's the homeless services.
Yeah, page 8
Let me look at your application.
of 16.
Yeah, homeless services.
Fourth line down,
Yeah,
United Way.
it says 0.
Says 64,493 on my application.
Oh. Well, I'm on page 9, and it's
Page 8. Status unknown. The funding cycle for the next year has not been announced. It will be announced for the United Way. So we don't know whether we've been funded or not for this coming year. But for the past year, on the previous page, we have been funded.
I see, okay.
It's a bit like saying, is the City of Urbana going to fund you? Well, I don't know. The City of Urbana hasn't decided. We can only say we hope, but status unknown.
And Eric?
When you talked with us last year, you had a horror story about dealing with the state. Has anything improved on that front in the last year?
They do remain consistently horrible. It is getting somewhat better. The difficulty is in terms of most funding for social service organisations, whether it's ours or anybody else's, is A, the contracts come out late, B, if they do maintain your funding, it's maintained. Well, that's great, but everything else in the world is going up. So even to kind of keep your head above water and keep treading water, you've got to keep pushing forwards, which is rather frustrating in terms of trying to provide services. But at least they're paying.
All right. Thank you very kindly.
Great. Thank you very much.
That actually ends the presentations that I have here. Janelle, anything else? Is there some? Yes, go ahead, Diane.
Do we have a total as far as the amount available to be distributed this year yet, Janelle?
We've estimated from the CDBG budget that we would contribute about $9,000. There have not been significant dollar amounts from the city budget and the township budget yet to consist that, unless anybody, Carol?
For right now, I'm putting in the tentative budget $100,000, which is $18,000 less than last year because that was a one-time deal. This is what I remember from last year. And whether that $100,000 will be permanent depends on how the rest of the fiscal year plays out.
Okay, so the pot gets ever smaller. Yeah, Eric.
Any hints available from city staff about what we may have to work with from that side? Is it reasonable to ask that question yet?
That's a good question. I think we should start with holding it constant, and then what would happen? You have a reduction, right? So, how much of a reduction is there?
It was previously 12,500.
Okay, so we had it about 316,000, is that what it was?
Was the total with all three pots, I believe
Okay,
yes.
so that would just whack it back to 304,000 if you had like a $12,000 reduction. So, I mean, that would be a something to start with, I think, and then we could, see what we can afford, depending on what the requests are.
Well, it's hard to do these allocations without some.
Yeah, but we're just starting. We're just looking at the requests right now, and we will have you a total, but that's subject to what you want to do. But I think it's reasonable to start with where we were last year and what, because we've tried to hold the budget constant, and we might want to make up for the $12,000 loss, but maybe that is not doable because we have all kinds of other increases.
So what is I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Eric.
what is the time frame where we might expect to see at least a tentative dollar amount, and where we might consider, trade-offs between this part of our budget and other pressures on at the margins on our budget?
I could probably email you tomorrow what Ron put in, and then we can go from there.
And just kind of as a review, at what time are we going to be making our first round of apportionments from each individual member of the City Council? Is there a due date for that yet?
I believe it would be the third Monday in June would be the final date that we have to have a decision made by. I will come with more information I think in May we'll have some more discussion about the applicants, and again, if there's someone else that did not speak this evening and you'd like them to come, we can have them come in May, and then by then we'll know more about the dollar amount that we can allot and specifically narrow down that time frame to make the decision by.
Okay. And Eric?
Will I be asked to coordinate this process again, or did I successfully do enough creative incompetence to get fired from that?
Eric, I think that everybody would want you to do it if you would like to do it.
Sure. It'll be easier the second time.
There's a learning curve.
There you go. More volunteer work for here on the City Council. All right. Well, with that, I guess we're going to close the meeting. And thank you all for coming. We appreciate your input.